What's up, you dirtbags? My name is Luke Egerbrotten, your host of today's show on the Dirtbags podcast. We've got a good one in store for you. A couple beverages we got. We got this. Somebody's telling me about this, the Deschutes Fresh Squeezed IPA. It's their NA version. I've been trying to stay off the alcohol a little bit, and so these NAs have really helped. A couple people I've talked to have just said, like, man, it's sometimes you just crave a cold beer, but you don't always want to be drinking alcohol. And so these non-alcoholic beers have been awesome. And I know we've talked about them a lot on the show. So we'll do a little rating on this as we jump in with our guest. And then, of course, we got a couple cold ones, a couple waters. So today's guest, so excited. We've got another Minnesota faithful. If you guys have been following the show in order, you've noticed that we've gone a little bit more Midwest the last few weeks. And some of my favorite people are up in Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska. It's nothing like it. So this one has been in the making for a while. Good friend of mine, somebody we've wanted to have on, but also wanted to make sure it's the right time. And this is that time. So without further ado, and also too, probably the two hardest last names on a podcast here. So mine's Egerbrotten, and our guest today, we've got Lincoln Ruggeberg, another two G's. Lincoln, how we doing, man?
Not too bad yourself.
Dude, I'm doing great. And Lincoln he owns Links Outdoor Services. Give him a follow on Instagram. You should just be able to search at Links Outdoor Services. There's a couple underlines in there, but you should be good there. Lincoln, dude, so glad to have you on finally.
Yeah, thank you.
I told my,
I'll join you with the cold one, except mine's sugar free.
hell yeah, we got the Mountain Dew silo. And I was telling you before this, because we're recording this on Monday. And there's a Vikings game. This is the one we're going to in Arizona here. I told myself I'd refrain from talking about the Vikings because this will come out 2 weeks later, but hopefully we're planning for a Super Bowl right now as you guys are listening to this, and hopefully we didn't get knocked out by the Rams a couple weeks ago. So with that, dude, thank you for being on the show. I know you've got a trip coming up. You're going to Mexico, right?
Yeah, Cancun on Thursday.
Cancun. How long are you going to be there?
Just a couple days. This is a short 4-day trip. Being
Yeah.
away from home, I get a little homesick, so I don't mind a
Yeah.
couple days away, but you gotta balance the work and life, duo a little bit.
Yeah, and you don't need many days in Mexico, honestly. Like a
No.
2, 3, 4 days. It's similar to Vegas, like a couple days in Vegas, and you're
Yeah,
ready to get
I'm
home.
not sick of it, but you're like, all right, I've had my fun for the few days, and it's time to go home.
Yeah, yeah. So, for those from the Midwest, so Lincoln, you're out of Rochester, Minnesota.
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with the area. I went to school in Mankato, Minnesota. My roommates are from Casson and Manorville, Byron area, and so
All my neck of the woods.
yeah, all your neck of the woods. So people listening that are familiar with that area, they do have a stoplight in Casson Manorville, but that was kind of their claim to fame for a while. But I heard
Not
that
very many.
I heard they got rid of it and put a roundabout in. So
Yeah,
small town things. But
yeah.
so your business is so interesting to me because it is very similar to mine, but it's also very similar to a lot of our podcast listeners. So what I mean by both that, we're about the same age. We started
Yep.
our business around the same time, 4 or 5 years ago,
Mhm.
and we're around the same in revenue as well. So I'm excited to unpack that as well. And Lincoln, as you and I were talking before this, what I really like about you is you're very open and you're very honest and transparent. And as we were talking about, the show, I think what gives our listeners the most value is when you're just open and honest with your numbers,
Out
what you've
there.
gone through, how you got there. And so, for everyone listening, as you're going through this here, get ready because I think this is going to be a really impactful episode. And to get started with that, Lincoln, if you don't mind giving us a snapshot of where you're at today with the company, and then maybe we
Yeah.
can go back to the start.
Go
And
backwards.
yeah, we'll do
So
that.
this would be, I guess, closing up year 4. We did anywhere from, I don't exactly know the exact number. I know really close, but roughly it was just over between 1 and 1.1 million
Gotcha.
in revenue.
And then what did that 1 million typically make up as far as services?
Like what we all did, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we did mainly landscaping, grading excavation, light excavation, a lot of boulder retaining walls. I know you've seen a lot of that.
Mhm.
I do quite a bit of tree work in the spring/fall, a little bit in the winter time. I do pair up with a lot of other trades.
Mhm.
So I have another tree guy that I work with, and we end up going and doing some land clearing back in would have been February, March.
Mhm.
And then our landscaping season started the first week of April. So from basically, and we obviously, and we'll get more into it, but we had a terrible winter
Yeah.
last year. So revenue really didn't start honestly until March, I would say, middle of March.
Yeah. Do
And
you, when it comes to like a slow winter like that, how do you, what did you do with your team? Did you have a team? Like, what did you do with that situation?
so I had two and a half guys kind of that worked for me year three. And then
Hmm.
last year, this past year, I had three full-time guys. So
Nice.
um I laid everybody off I try to push it a little bit longer than most. My previous employer, we would get laid off generally the week of Thanksgiving. As for myself, doing the tree work and then obviously maintenance and some other snow plowing, I think I laid my guy off sometime middle of December, middle to end of December. So
Gotcha.
it just kind of varies the years. This year I laid my guys off a little bit, it was right around Thanksgiving time just because it got really cold really fast and with no snow on the ground, the frost just kind of took. And it just doesn't make
Hmm.
any sense to try and, push too hard, I guess.
Yeah. So for people listening, and even myself, maybe that don't have employees yet or are getting into the type of business and the type of work you do, when it comes to laying off employees for a few months, is that process pretty easy? And then have you seen that, like,
Yeah.
are your guys pretty acceptable of that, or like, do they care as much, or what are your
Yes
thoughts
and
on
no.
that?
I think a lot of it's, and don't get me wrong, I'm young, man. We're both young. So
Yeah.
you kind of learn as you go. Um, Unemployment can be somewhat tricky. And I don't necessarily know all of it yet. I mean, I was on unemployment, but from an employer side, it's a whole different ballgame. I mean,
Yep.
you pay money throughout the year. They figure out exactly how much money in revenue, or sorry, how much money in income your employees are taking, and roughly you have to guesstimate how much they're going to make throughout the year. And then
Hmm.
unemployment kicks in and says, all right, you're going to pay so much money. And then if it's a little bit less or a little bit more, they rejudge you for the following year. If you paid a little under, then you have to actually pay in. If you paid a little
Gotcha.
over, then it'll cover you for a little bit the next year. So it's kind of like taxes, right? You kind of have to follow the dotted line a little bit just so you don't not necessarily screw yourself, but
Hmm.
you have to make sure that you're accounting for all your extras that's going to cost you. Um,
Yeah.
and with me, I only had two and a half employees the following year before that, or following the year before that. So I had to reevaluate some things, make sure that, what I'm paying them an hour, et cetera, that's all counterbalanced, and then you could pay your unemployment that way. Now, per month, unemployment is separate from me. I just pay the unemployment for what I figure their wages are going to be for the year. And then beyond that, like when they go to apply, I have nothing to do with that. That's
Right.
that's all based on unemployment. So it can be tricky. A lot of it's just trying to explain that to your guys. One of the guys that's on unemployment, that's been with me now, this will be his fourth season. I'm assuming he comes back, but excuse me, he understands the process of it. He understands
Mhm.
whatever. I did have a newer guy that came in this year. Trying to figure out, he was not used to it, so getting him aware of that. Like I said, it just kind of takes some time. And then my third employee, I actually put him on salary for the winter. Um,
Gotcha.
so I was
Gotcha.
able to kind of take that jump in revenue and try to counterbalance it again, to try and help with some of my overhead costs.
Yeah, and I think the big thing as you're talking through this, it sounds like is communication, and also, we all work for the business, including the owner, and
Correct.
the business has to eat no matter what. And so I
Every
think the
day.
more transparent and open you can be in the summer, springtime, fall time, and heading into winter, the better, because then they're more aware. It's like, hey, how are we looking? And you're like, hey, so far it's looking good so
Right.
far, but you're never guaranteeing it, I'm guessing, of when
No,
you're
I
going
mean,
to
you
stop.
mean being laid off or working?
Right. Yeah.
So that's I think my the biggest thing with myself is I'm always pushing to
Hmm.
try and do more.
Right.
I've invested my entire life since I've started this business, every day to like basically give back into it.
Hmm.
And while it's kind of hard from an employee side sometimes because there's a lot that goes into a business, like you said, we talked about doing $1 million in sales. It sounds pretty, it sounds great, it
Yeah.
sounds like you're making all this money. But when you really crunch it down to what your overhead expenses are, what your rent, your insurance, your payroll, your breakdowns, your fuel bill. I mean, a couple of years straight, I was spending almost 40 to 50,000 a year just in fuel.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so when you really break it down, it's not $1 million. It's nowhere near that.
Yeah.
And it even took me a hard time to kind of comprehend and contradict all that because I'm like, wow, I did $1 million, but you really didn't.
Yeah. No, I love that you bring that up because I had that, and I don't talk a ton about it to anyone outside of business, but word sometimes gets around, I'm sure. And then somebody heard, we did our first million this year, and we're very excited about it. But uh, and somebody thought like that meant like I made $1 million. I was like,
Right.
no, 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 no. Like there's tons of expenses, and but all that to say, we're very grateful, and you come from a
Correct.
place of
Oh,
gratitude, of course, and
100%.
like we were talking about earlier, many businesses will never hit that mark. And so it's kind of toting the line of like being very grateful, but also there's so many other bills to pay, retained earnings, like taxes and all of this stuff just to keep the lights on and to keep this thing going. So,
And like I said too, though, a lot of it is communication, and sometimes
yeah.
I try to like pull myself back a little bit because
Hmm.
every year, right? I mean, the board's behind me that you can't really see it, but with the boards behind me, like every year I put goals up. Every year I
Yeah.
put, like this year I put goals that I wanted to, like things I want to purchase, things that my actual overall goal for the year,
Hmm.
stuff like that. And then you take the stuff that you did last year. Now, the one thing I told my employer, my foreman, for instance, is I said, hey, like I'm not perfect. Like this is year four. You're not now going into year five. Like we're about the same age,
Hmm.
and I want them to understand that I make mistakes. I'm human. I want to get better. I want to be better. Like my communication is definitely key, but I still struggle with it.
Yeah.
And like even on employment, there was some miscommunication at the end of this year where one of my employees didn't understand and had never been on it before. So I'm trying to make sure that I do the best for myself. And obviously I didn't do a good enough job with that. So for 2025, like to me, that's something I got to work on.
Hmm.
Being better, a better boss, a way to show my guys, why we're in business, like to give them a reason to come every day to work with a positive attitude. Like that's just something I have to do myself. And being in marketing, like you're always, like it's always let's go. So
Yeah.
like for me and trying to do that on my end of things too, like like I said, there's always room for growth. I'm
Yeah.
never gonna be perfect. I don't ever want to be perfect, but
Hmm.
I want to improve. And if you're not willing to improve, like you're not gonna get anywhere in life, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. And just growing yourself personally, professionally, in business. I mean, that is so big. So, I'm curious to hear some of your goals, but before we dive into those, I'd love to ring it back a little bit and start from year one. If you can just give us a snapshot of even just revenue numbers of
Mhm.
year one, two, three, and four, I think it'd be really cool to see the trajectory and how we got to this point.
Yeah.
And then also hear your goals on, equipment purchases and any other goals that you might have.
Yeah, so year one, it was just me and one guy, and I would say he was there 3/4 of the year. I
Yep.
think my goal was 250.
Hmm.
I think I hit somewhere between 3 to 360, somewhere in there. Year two was a 500,000, and I hit, I want to say I hit like 650. And
Hmm.
there was three of us that year. Somewhere
Six.
between I think it was between 6 and 700.
Gotcha. In year three.
I believe so. Don't
Yep.
quote me on that exactly with the I have to pull back up. I mean, I would say lower sixes. I don't want to give myself too much credit here.
There you
And
go.
and then that was year two, and then year three was 750,000.
Hmm.
And we hit what did I hit? I want to say it was around 8 to 900, somewhere in there. And then
Gotcha.
this past year, my goal was 1 million, and we did 1 to 1.1.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So, man, that's awesome. And then when you started year one and you're going up the ranks, year one, were you doing landscaping or what did you start out with?
So I started the business as Link's handyman service. When
Okay.
yeah, so I did a little change of business, you should say. But when I started, I didn't think I would be busy year round. Like you just talked about, putting my guys in layoff, it not necessarily that it puts you like, do you get those guys back every year? Are they gonna
Mhm.
go find a different job? So for me, like I did handyman because I was good at multiple things, but I also wanted to stay busy and I didn't want people to think like I wanted people to think I could do it all. That's kind
Yep.
of like the whole reason I started with handyman. I could do a little construction. I had done construction in the past with my cousins. That kind of went downhill and I just did a different path in life. But I really loved landscaping and people knew me for landscaping.
Mhm.
And so a couple of years in, I redefined the fact that I needed to kind of rechange what I started with.
Mhm.
And so we started out really landscaping. We did a couple odds and end things, but 90% of the work that I did was landscaping, and it really threw some people off, which is why I rebranded. And then so from like year one to year two and even, year three and so on, like obviously we've gotten into some bigger work.
Yep.
We've done a lot of tree work, land clearing, just tree removal in general. And then we get into landscaping where it's just a tear out and install. I've done a lot of rock retaining walls. That's kind of my niche.
Mhm.
And a lot of that is just because that's what I'm most passionate in. So when we're doing a job, like some people like the block look, some people like a boulder look. Like I personally, I like boulders. I like
Yep.
natural stone is expensive, and boulders is kind of like that middle niche where if
Mhm.
you have a budget but can't afford what actual natural stone costs, boulders would kind of contradict some of that because it's a little cheaper.
Yeah. And then I believe you've got the CMP grapple. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
When did you buy that? Like, were you doing the boulder walls before you had that?
Yeah, I was. I did it all with a
Just
thumb.
with the thumb?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he,
that's
he couldn't pay me enough to do that again.
right. It's funny when you think back and you got to be skilled to do it, right? With just a
Oh yeah.
thumb. But then you see something with like the CMP grapple and it's like, this would be a lot easier.
Yeah, I mean, and it's all based on like where you are in your life and your
Yeah.
business. And some people go all in right off the bat and they have it. And that's great if you can do it. I financially just couldn't do it.
Right.
Um, I bought my house really young, so I was in a boatload of debt as it was. And I'm not that I'm trying to be debt free by any means, but I'm trying to be within small debt where you
Yeah.
can still have some debt, but still be successful, and not have to, I stress over everything. So if I could lower my stress a little bit by the payments and everything else, and I could put that money, whether it's in my guys' pocketbooks or in my pocketbook or back into more equipment or whatever else, like that's kind of why I just do it little by little, try not to
Yeah.
get over on top of myself a little bit too.
Yeah. Well, I think having a good equity position is important too because
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
there's downturns, there's upturns in the economy, in your business.
correct.
You might get sick, your team members might quit. I mean, you just never know. There's things going on. So, um, yes, growth is great, and having a good amount of debt can be very helpful. But at the same time, too, having a good equity position and making sure like you're working towards owning more of your equipment, I could see how that would be a great strategy.
Oh, for sure. And the other thing too is you work all of your life. I mean, some people, like I said, some people can handle the debt. But like I said, you have one bad year, like for winter.
Hmm.
Last winter we had no winter. And I had just invested $40,000 into winter. I didn't even make that.
Yeah,
So
dude.
to try and like, I've just bought a farm and, all the things. And it's like, wow. and I mean, and we, like I said, we can get more into it, but this past year was, the most struggling that I've ever endured. So, like with that said, it's just, you gotta just kind of, I try to just slow down, and everybody will tell you I don't slow down.
Yeah. Right.
I overthink I don't over everything, but I'm always trying. I'm always spending money. I'm buying
Yeah.
the next thing. I just bought a another hydro grapple, or not grapple, a CMP bucket for the hydro bucket. I bought a mini skid this winter, so
Yeah.
I finally bought a mini skid I've been renting for the last few years, and so I bought another mini skid, hydro bucket, just because I know how efficient it is. And I'm like, you know what? I said, screw it, I'm just gonna buy it. I'm working, I'll work a little harder one day, and hopefully it'll pay for itself. So,
Absolutely. No, I love that. And I see that a lot with business owners too. It's, we talk ourselves off the ledge and then all of a sudden it makes so much sense when you see it. You're like, I got
yep.
this. It's so important, I think, just to have a little bit of that balance too of like, you got to be aggressive and you got to go out there and get it. Otherwise somebody else will. And, but
Correct.
at the same time too, there's a smart way to do it. So
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yep.
yeah, no, I love that. So you brought this up just a second ago. You said last year, 2024, was your hardest year you've ever been through. And for a lot of people, listening, you're like, well, you did $1 million in revenue. It's the most you've ever done. You hit your goals. Like, how on earth could that be the worst year ever? But I really want to stop there and unpack that a little bit. So, what happened in 2024 that um, was such a big impact on your life and, really induced the struggle?
A lot of it's just, starting off in January. Um, Personally, I went through some stuff. I won't talk too much about that, but went through some stuff, wasn't easy. Kind of went downfall, winter with no snow, cold weather, you can't work a
Hmm.
lot. So I just bought this farm 3, 4 months beforehand. So I was doing a bunch of stuff there, but it was kind of not a rocky end of the year, but some tempers were flared, whatever else. I just was not in a good mood, kind of being a negative Nancy. My personal life was kind of going rough. I ended up drinking pretty heavily, actually, all of January. I mean, almost every day I think I drank. I just kind of, winter depression kind of kicked in. We weren't, like I said, we weren't getting any snow. February, a buddy of mine, he also kind of quit drinking. He kind of pushed me, not pushed me, but he's, we bounced, you got that buddy you look to all the time, you talk to. Him and I look up to him a lot. And so he quit drinking and I quit drinking. I think I did, I forget how many days, but I know for sure it was 75, but I want to say it was right around 90 days I quit drinking.
Yeah.
Super healthy. I think I lost a little bit of weight. It was very rewarding to do that. But on top of that, we had no winter. So from a business aspect, I had just bought a farm. I'm 3 months in. I invested almost all my money
Hmm.
into not only the farm, the house, the business, everything. And then I was at least going for an average winter. And this is where, like, like I say, I try to be humble about it, but you got to look back and you got to think ahead and not behind. You got to
Hmm.
pack money away. You got to be smart with your spending. I wasn't smart enough, apparently, because I invested, and I invested way too much. And I should have just held back a little bit. And, there's nothing I can do about it now. It just kind of was what it was. And so then I had to go into spring broke. We're
Hmm.
trying to get job money for jobs and all this stuff. And I hired a new truck driver slash another landscape technician, as you would call it. And so we went into spring, a little tough. Well, then I had two dogs. I had split off with my significant other at the time. I got one dog, she got the other. And then 3 months after, while having him by myself, um, he actually passed away unexpectedly.
Hmm.
Threw me for a big curveball. I mean, he had been, he was only two, or just shy of three, when he passed. And it just kind of, it's a dog. Everybody's got man's best friend or what, whether it's cat or whatever. It was somebody I turned to a lot when I was not doing too hot in the spring. And obviously in the winter months too, I was just really, mentally just struggling. And so getting into the spring, spring, that was late between spring and summer or whatever, or early summer, I should say. Like I said, it just kind of threw me off. I got over it, I was really stuck I don't know why I was so stuck, but like I said, you see somebody every day for, like I say, you come home to a long, crappy day of work or whatever the case may be. It threw me for a curveball. Well, then later on, I moved on, whatever. We got into June, and a good friend of mine, I was supposed to go to a wedding with a couple weeks prior, later on, ended up taking her life to
Mhm.
suicide. So, yeah, that's pretty much where everything mentally just kind of drained me. Like I don't even know. I from a from a business level, I still had a business to run. Um, I really kind of pushed on my guys a little bit to help me out. Um, I don't trying to find the right words. Like I don't know. I mean, we're young, man. I mean, I turned 30 in a couple weeks, and I've lost a grandpa. I've seen other people pass away to car accidents. I've seen people, die from cancer. It all sucks. It's part of life,
Mhm.
and for me to lose a friend, I mean, I had just seen her 5 days prior. She had dinner at my house. We were on a four-wheeler out on my, I got 15 acres, and we were taking a four-wheeler ride, and she was laughing and giggling. And, just a really good friend of mine when I was, like I said, somebody to turn to. And, business is stressful, life is stressful, whatever. Just like I said, it's just a down to earth, good person.
Mhm.
And like I said, life unfortunately was hard, and like I said, it just kind of broke me. So I, and like it kind of probably where you've seen a lot of it is I've been pretty open about it. I guess I don't know what the right words are. There's no right words to try and I can't bring it back. And I just feel like her family is fantastic, and her sister and her niece, they're all great people. And so I've been trying to be supportive and do what I can to be my part, but then at the same time you got to support yourself, and you got to hold strong. And so I use work as kind of like a therapy essentially.
Mhm.
And probably why my life is devoted to work is because all I do is think about work. Every day I'm out. If I'm not out on a job site doing a bid or whatever else, I'm out on my farm, fixing it up to make it look more presentable or to do the next best thing. So through, uh, and I obviously I went to a wedding 2 weeks after her funeral, that I was hoping she'd be on, and so that really just, like I said, it ached, for 6 months. I've not to sound Debbie Downer, but suicide's been on my mind pretty much all year.
Mhm.
And I hate to think negative all the time. I hate to think down because that's not my end goal. Obviously, I'm trying to run a successful business, and I'm trying to be positive about it. But in the back of your head, like it's all there. It haunts me every day. And um I still don't know how to really beat it. I think I cried for days. And as grown men, like probably people might think lower or less of that. Not necessarily less, but like, it's one of those things where like we're built to be tough. We're supposed to hold it all together. I've said it all the time to my girlfriend where I'm like, I'll figure it out. Like I'm broke, I'll figure it out. And I have. And I've done that. And I've hit my goals. But like this just, I can't figure it out. And not that I
Mhm.
have to figure it out, but like I gotta get my brain on straight. I gotta get my head in the right path. Unfortunately, I've been in her shoes before. And there's been 2 to 3 times in my life that I've been in a dark place. January was one of those.
Mhm.
And that was one of the 3 times where I felt like I just couldn't beat it. And and that's where I turned to my dog. I was like, all right, buddy, it's time. And he's like, no, it's not. And I just kept driving, even though I wanted
Mhm.
to give up. And that's where like when this happened with my friend, I kind of fucking lost it. I just, you know, I've tried to hold myself together and I've tried to and beat the impossible and obviously I keep going every day, but my, at the back of my head, all I think about is, somebody who was there every day of your life and then boom, they're gone. Um, so yeah, that's kind of how my summer went. I really changed courses on my goals a little bit. My goal was obviously was to still hit $1 million. Obviously we did that. Um, I kind of put myself first a little bit after that.
Yeah.
I don't ever do that. It's sometimes people might think that I do, but I try to give back a crap load each year. And so this year I built a pond. I had a buddy this fall. I'm like,
Mhm.
fuck it, we're doing it. I've kind of like I know Evan's Landscape. I don't know if you know who that is or
Oh
not.
yeah.
Evan put up a pond a couple years ago, and I was like, oh man, one day I will get there. And then a couple of years back, a buddy of mine, we built a waterfall. It was his idea. I just was there to help. But we built a waterfall, and it's a pool slash pond in his backyard. And he lives about 40 minutes south of me in Grand Meadow, and it just turned out badass. And so
Mm.
that's kind of the end goal. So since the passing of my friend, I took the summer to. I mean, I basically grinded, listen to a lot of music, a little bit of therapy, to try and, to move on through all that. Once I kind of hit into fall, I asked my buddy if he could help me out. And basically we started building a pond and, while working every day too, so I'm
At
working
the
every
farm.
day. What's that?
At the farm.
Yeah, at the farm. Yep.
Gotcha.
So I got 15 acres when I bought this place. House, bunch of outbuildings. I have a small shop in the front, big shop in the back that it's a shell essentially. There is concrete in the
Mhm.
floor, but it was used for cattle. So that's gonna be the future shop one day. Um,
Gotcha.
and then obviously I have a bunch of pasture area. So I basically took the pasture, took all the grain bins down that were rotted, hauled out 30 loads of concrete, and then since we started basically digging for a pond. So
Gotcha. And you alluded to this that that was for yourself, right? Of just
yeah, a lot. I mean, there's a couple angles. I mean, the end
Mhm.
goal is I can show a client we're gonna do some water features, and we'll get into that more in the next couple of years. Some water features, a patio, kind of a safe space, as you call it. A lot of people like to go on vacations. Don't get me wrong, I am leaving for one at the end of the week, but I I don't like to leave home. I did like a domestic Peace Corps out of high school, and so I volunteered for a year right out of high school,
Mhm.
and I got really homesick. And so while I was there, like, when I go on vacations, that's kind of why I don't like going for long periods of time because I do miss home. Some I, just one of those things that you deal with in life. And so with this pond slash the farm, like this is my safe space. Some people like to go to Vikings games every other week. I I just like to, I like to come home and do whatever. So, one day hopefully I'll have kids and I can with the pond we're gonna have a fishing pond.
Mhm.
So there'd be my goal was maybe a couple thousand fish in there. It's 22 feet deep in one spot, so it's really
Oh
deep.
wow.
Oh yeah, it's huge, man. And then we're gonna create some water features because I really, I do a lot of rock work, so I really kind of, I don't know. I like the niche for it. I like the tricky. It's hard. It's not easy.
Mhm.
Kind of like business, and so something different. And like I said, with the passing of my friend, I needed to do something for myself. And that was kind of what I came up with. So,
Yeah, man. Well, for one, I'm sorry to hear about your friend. And honestly, like the year you had, because leading up to her passing, I mean, it was a very, very difficult year.
oh heck yeah.
And then, as you're down, I mean, when you think it couldn't get any worse, then the unthinkable happens. And as I'm hearing you, talk through, after that too, it seems like you've made some changes in your life, or maybe in your mindset, or at least you're trying to. But it
I
does,
mean, try. I mean, like I said, I think it's a lot of it's just a lot to process.
yeah.
And so, like, and a lot of people, and I'll be honest, and, a lot of close people of mine, I got a really good support system. I won't lie.
Hmm.
And sometimes I underestimate myself for that because not that
Hmm.
I don't think I don't have that, but in my mind, I don't want to rely on other people. I don't want to have to be the guy that has to lean on somebody else's shoulder because that's just how I'm built. I don't want to have to ask somebody for money. I don't want to have to ask for a crying shoulder, whatever the case may be. I didn't know how to deal with it. And so, like I said, finding it's kind of like your passion for network or marketing, right? And
Hmm.
networking. And that's why you have this podcast is because it brings people together. Since I've gotten Instagram, it's brought me to so many different people that I've never even met before. And that's what humbles me is that complete strangers who
Hmm.
I don't even talk to a lot of can support me sometimes more than the people there every day. But like I said, I do have a great support system. So I've had friends reach out, I've had family reach out, my girlfriend has helped, all the things. And so that's huge. But finding your reason, like what's your reason to live,
Hmm.
like finding your why. I kind of found that when I started landscaping. I came out of another bad period of my life where I was struggling and trying to pick up the pieces, and that's where I started that handyman at the time. And then from there, we just took it on, and, my biggest commitment to me, not only being successful, is the people that come with me.
Yeah.
You're only as good as the people that support you and that are around you. And sometimes, don't get me wrong, I still have to step back and be like, hey, I haven't done my part. I need to do my part some more, which is a learning thing for sure. But, I've had a lot of support, a lot of help along the way. So, their time will come or vice versa. So,
Yeah. Oh, and like you talked about too, I mean, uh, sometimes you make it feel like you don't need help, or you don't need that shoulder, you don't need uh, that support. But then when you truly, truly do need it, and you don't know where else to go, like they will be there. And just having those people in your life, and making sure that those people are the right people. And you mentioned it too, just people that you've never met but that support you, and people that reach out to you through Instagram. I believe you were telling me a story of you met somebody at, was it a trade show, or somebody knew, recognized your logo.
yeah, I'm trying to think of who it was though. Gosh dang it, I'm drawing a blank.
Yeah, and it's just so cool that, and even from this podcast, like hopefully, a few of the people listening reach out to you, let you know that they listened. And also, you never know like what anyone else is going through too. And
Oh, for sure. I mean, and like business and like social media, especially because obviously there's a lot of social people out there like that express what they're doing, but a lot of people show the good, right? And that's
yeah.
great. Like there's nothing wrong with showing the good, and I'm a firm believer of that. But like the struggles and like the world is not perfect. Obviously, in the last 5 years, we've noticed that with COVID and presidency, blah blah blah, whatever. But for me, like I kind of sometimes, and maybe I'm too open about it. I don't know. People can say the opposite or more or whatever, but I just try to be honest about it. Like I'm not perfect. I don't like I said, I don't want to be perfect. My business is not perfect. Like we've made mistakes along the way, but I try to identify that. I try to show that. Sometimes I don't show enough of it. But from a if I go into a job or sell you a job and something goes wrong, like I'm gonna own it. And then on top of it, I might share it with the world. And some
Yeah.
people are like, why would you share that? And I'm like, why not? Like are you going to hire the contractor that's going to come in and do shoddy work and then not own it? And then like you're stuck at, you spent $50,000 and you don't have what you're looking for. Like my gratification every day is seeing a client love what we do. Now,
Hmm.
not every single job is that same gratification the same, but I want people to understand like I fucking care, dude. Like
Yeah.
I give 110% at it. And I will lose money on a job before I let somebody talk shit about me because that's just how much I give a shit. And some people, and I've seen it firsthand, where businesses will go in and do a job, and they don't. What's the word? I lost my train of thought. Businesses go into a job and they're just there to, like I said, they're just there to collect the check and go home. Now, some days, like mentally, yeah, you can, people could say the same thing about me, but at the end of the day, like all weekend long, we didn't get any snow, but I guess we did get a half inch, but it wasn't enough to plow. And I was out there during the day, or I had buddies that I know that were like a good support system to me that went out and checked sites for their own, but then also me. Like you just bounce things off each other to support and help. And then just continue to do that. So
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah,
rambling.
that's huge, man. And I know we were talking even before this too, and you had brought something up. And I love how transparent you are with it on your social media, because you do show the hard days, you do show the good days, and I think that's more important than anything. Something you talked about that I thought hits hard is, don't let the hard days win. And I
Oh,
think
hard.
what you're saying with that too is like every day is a battle.
Yeah. I mean, the last from June 10th to basically end of the year. I mean, it's six
Hmm.
months, 6, 8 months. I mean, every day. I had everything I could do every day to get out of bed. I mean,
Hmm.
there was days where I about said fuck it and just like I'm just gonna take a week off or what. And I'm like, nah, my guys rely on me.
Yeah.
Like they signed up to work for me, and I shouldn't say signed up sounds worse, but they made the commitment to work for Links Outdoor. I got to give them the same commitment back. So through my struggle and obviously I've been suicidal. I've struggled with my mental health. Like that's part of the reason why I don't give up. Like, seeing all the people that surrounded my friend, and even though she didn't feel like she had those people, like I felt that from my end of things because the people that reached out to me. And I'm like, my guys depend on me every day. And so if I give up, what example am I leaving?
Hmm.
Obviously, like I said, you go through periods in your life where it's hard. I try to be really positive. I try to keep a positive attitude for my guys. Some days really suck. That's why I invest all this money into CMP. That's why I invest all this money in equipment. We have a power wheelbarrow that we use, and my guys probably hardly touch a wheelbarrow 12 times a year if they're lucky. So because I invest in all this money, because I give a shit. I want them to come to work and enjoy what they're doing. If they don't enjoy what they do, we're in the wrong career or they're in the
Hmm.
wrong career. I don't know. Like guaranteed, yeah, we all have days where we're down each other's throats, but like there's a lot of days where we're laughing, kicking it back. Like I tell my guys, we just gotta work at a positive, rate to get shit done, make money. You guys make money, I make money. I reward you based on how we do. If we can do well and you guys can perform, or you guys outperform what I bid this for, guaranteed they don't really know that. But that's the best part about it. If you're motivated every day and keep performing like you're doing, I will reward you.
Hmm.
And that's why I give it 110%. And like I said, some days you don't see it, some days you do. And I'm sure you got ways in how you market your employees to want to drive that every day. But I like going to a job, completing the job, making sure the client's happy, going home with a smile on my face. Like I get pumped every time I post pictures on Facebook because I'm proud of what we do.
Yeah.
And obviously you're gonna have flaws along the way. There's gonna be mistakes made. Your guys had a different interpretation of what you did. That's on me. That's something that I got to teach. And I'm still learning how to do all that. So, in the course of the next 10 years, that's my goal is just to get better at communicating, get better at, advocating for the hard days. Don't let the hard days win. I've really
Hmm.
thought about, I mean, every day I think about it. Don't let the hard day win. It's a bad day. Just go home, relax, keep moving every day. Every day you just got to keep going.
When you say keep going, and if you could give one piece of advice, to somebody listening and when they're wrestling with maybe something similar, maybe something totally different, but when it comes to like not letting the hard days win, from your experience and something maybe that's helped, what would you give as a piece of advice to somebody that maybe the hard days are winning?
Um, ooh, that's deep. turn. Sorry, come in a minute. Um, I mean, there's a lot of factors to that. I would say, like for me, I'm wearing a sweatshirt right now. I obviously I'm on TikTok or I follow TikToks, but it says stay another day, and so on the back there's 99 reasons to stay another day. For me, it's do the things that make you happy.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they make you uncomfortable or make other people uncomfortable, but you got to do those things that make you happy. I got a lot of people that support me, but don't understand why I do certain things. And I've tried to physically explain that to them. So from my aspect is you got to do what makes you happy. And if you're not doing those things that make you happy, you got to find a thing that makes you happy. Because like I said, I've had a lot of hard days, a lot of hard days. And 2024 taught me that. And I'll be honest with you, man, like not that I've had a rough life, because I definitely haven't. People have way worse
Mm-hmm.
than I do. But seeing what I went through in 2024, I don't ever want to have a year like that. I'd rather do less money and just not have to deal with what I dealt with, just because it was so eye opening, and it changed my whole life. I mean, and not just that one thing, because a couple weeks after that, or sorry, a couple months after that, I think it was, I'm drawing a blank on the date. It was sometime in September, October. I can't quite remember. I believe that's when it was. Another friend of mine who I plowed snow with was in a manhole, and it lost his life to carbon monoxide and sulfur.
I saw that actually. I saw that on the
Yeah,
news.
I plowed snow with him for 2 years, and I'm friends with his best friend, or what was his best friend. And like I said, life is short. Like and don't get me wrong, I take it for granted every day. And so
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I spend money like it's my last day, because quite honestly, and yeah, it's maybe bad on my part because I spent all this money, but I'm living life. Like I'm investing in that next thing because I think it's gonna help me in the business. So like I put my pond in because I finally said, fuck it. I'm gonna go enjoy my life. So if I go out tomorrow, I know that my intentions were there. I know what my reasoning for life. A lot of people I see in life, they work till they're 60, 65 years old. They finally got to where they wanted it in life, or they're finally getting to where they want in life. My goal was always to shorten that. Like I don't, whether I make it that long or not, I guess that's up to God at that point. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like I'm trying to be like my parents. My parents struggled growing up. They, even though I went to Christian, I don't know if you know, I went to Christian school growing up. RCLS, which is one of the sites I actually plow now. It's a Rochester Central Lutheran School.
Yeah.
My parents sent me and my three siblings all to that school. When I grew up, I was a little hellion. I didn't care much for church. Not that I didn't care, but like I didn't. I got sick of it, and so, but it taught me as I grew up and got older that like what the importance of it was. That's probably why who I am today is like, because part of that reason of that school is like it taught me to be humble. It taught me to put others first, and it makes me feel good. So I kind of got off of what you're saying, but like I said, the biggest thing I could tell anybody is you gotta do what makes you happy. And
Mm-hmm.
I still struggle finding that every day, but taking that vacation, going on a trip, seeing a buddy you haven't seen in 10 years, going to the bikes game to the Super Bowl. Fuck it, just do it.
Let's go.
Like, I mean, really, and don't get me wrong, I eat my own words because I don't take time off for myself.
Sure. Sure.
But my goal now is to build a pond, build a badass pond that I can bring people to, or I don't even need to be here. They can go see it.
Mm-hmm.
If you need a little therapy, go sit. And I'm not a therapeutic kind of person. I listen to rock music and Avenged Sevenfold. So like that's not who I am. But like it's therapeutic, you know. So I haven't fished in 10 years. I have not fished in 10 plus years. I'm putting
Wow.
a pond in my backyard to be able to do that. So that maybe I could teach my kids something that one day, have
Dude,
a badass patio so that I can, entertain people. I don't know, just all the things.
I love it. And I put this on the Phaser marketing story on Instagram a couple days ago now, but I don't know if you saw it, but it was a quote that Olivia had printed out and we're gonna have in our house here. And I hadn't read it before, and it was one of her favorite quotes. But it's by Hunter Thompson, and it says, "Life should not be a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in a pretty and well-preserved body, but rather to skid in broadside in a cloud of smoke, thoroughly used up, totally worn out, and loudly proclaiming, 'Wow, what a ride.'" And I was like, that is incredible because I think it makes those, some of the hard days and the days you're talking about are very, very serious and are very tough to bounce back from. And then there's some days where they're hard, but at the end of the day, like life is hard. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And it's like,
100%.
and like you're saying too, it's so well put together of like, man, you just got to find what you enjoy. Like you're going to be beat up, you're going to be battered. And then how do you not let those hard days win and like take over your mindset? And I just love how you work through that because it is going to be hard to put a smile on. It's going to be hard to have a positive attitude. But if that's one of the few things you can control, it's like, how do you bring that back and how do you
Oh,
win with
for
that?
sure. Well, and like I said, bringing it back to my guys too, I
Hmm.
am nothing without my crew. Like,
Yeah.
and hopefully, if they do end up ever listening to this, like I am, without them, I'm nothing. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, I build a lot of boulder walls. I set them all myself, majority of them. I have had they have set a couple of them on their own, but they have helped me get here. And like, that's the other thing too with business. Like I want to be able to reward them one day. I want them
Yeah.
to be able to make good freaking money and, not have to have a college education. Like I didn't go to college at all. And building an empire, as you would call it. Like I don't want to
Hmm.
build. Everybody said get big. I hear it all the time. Let's just get big, get big.
Oh, what does that mean?
Well, yeah,
Right.
exactly. Everybody's get big is differently. If you want
Yeah.
to grow your business and have 50 employees and scale, by all means, that's you. For
Yeah.
me, I just wanted quality work at a fair but honest price. I want my clients to feel like they've been appreciated
Hmm.
by us, but then vice versa. And at the end of the day, I just want to have some fun. Like going to work and like back when I worked for my landscape job before this, like don't get me wrong, I had fun, but I counted the minutes. Like, when are you gonna go home?
Yeah.
And I don't count the minutes now. Every day is a work day. And so, like, even when I'm not working, I'm thinking about it. So, like, I don't count the minutes. I don't look at the clock, be like, wow, it's 5 o'clock. It's time to go home. No, it's not. Like, we're gonna keep going. So like I said, finding those like that rhythm and being, trying to stay positive at the same time. You know.
Yeah. And since you, I mean, literally just brought that up, my dad, he just wrote his first book
Oh,
this year,
really?
and
Cool.
his it's titled "Find Your Beat, Walk in the Rhythm of Life." And since you brought it up,
I don't
that's why I
read
thought.
books, but I might have to read that one.
Yeah, and I thought it was appropriate for this time period too, because he does talk about mental health and suicide and finding your beat, really, and because he's also a musician as well, and that's what he does professionally. He speaks all across the country, and he speaks to frontline workers, nurses, fire department, police officers, doctors, like whoever it is that's on the front lines that are having these bad days.
Mhm.
So I guess, and not to segue too quickly, because I know you brought up your music as well, and I know that's helped you, but my book recommendation would be my dad's book. So
Yeah,
it's available. I'll drop a link in the description too for you guys, but I read it front cover to back cover on one plane ride. It took me 3 hours.
damn.
It's an incredible book. But Lincoln, I wanted to. We were talking about books before this, and you'd mentioned you're not much of a reader, but you are a student of business. You love educating yourselves. You love learning. And one of the other things I wrote down too is your willingness to learn new things. So, in a little bit of a twist, instead of like a book recommendation, what are your favorite ways to learn some of those new things? It could be anything. And then I know maybe a little bit more just therapeutic would be the music. But how do you like to learn new things?
I think a lot of it's like people like yourself. Like up until social media, guaranteed social media can be good and bad. I
For
know
sure.
plenty of people are like, I stay off social media because it just not brainwashes you, but it puts you in a weird spot. So for me, I try to use social media as a positive thing. Now people will
Hmm.
tell you I'm addicted to my phone because I am, but but
I like how you just threw it out there.
yeah, it is what it is. I just
Yeah,
accept at this point.
that's
But
good.
using certain like Instagram, like Facebook is one thing, but Instagram to me, like just seeing the different like Mulder, Andy Mulder,
Hmm.
humble dude.
Yeah,
I've sat down actually with him at a table for a synced up event, and he's honest, he puts it out there, and he does great work, and I love people like that. So seeing people like himself and other influencers, like that's kind of like my, like that's what I look for.
yeah.
I've used certain things that they've posted on social media to benefit
Hmm.
my business. There's a guy over in it's either Oregon or Washington, Supreme. I'm trying to blank on his first name. Sheldon, he owns Supreme Excavating, I'm pretty sure. Same thing. Great. From what I've seen, they do great work. He's built his business up. He's very like dialed on what he does. Like I just take away things. Take away certain things that certain businesses do and they don't. And that's where I try to learn to strive. And not
Yeah,
everybody get off social media, but that's what I see every day. And so those are the things that I try to build myself up on. And then in the behind the scenes too, like I have a mentor. His
hmm.
name is Mark. He basically I worked for him when I was 15 after getting into a little bit of trouble. Yeah, delinquent, I know. Uh,
Classic.
so I got in a little bit of trouble in high school, and he kind of took me under his wing. And since I was 15, like I said, I'll be 30 in less than a month. And
Yeah.
so like I worked for him for like dollars, like $10 an hour, shoveling snow. And he
And
taught me,
that's pretty good at that
yeah,
age. I
dude.
mean, that I was at 7.25. What the
Well,
hell?
I might have worked a little harder. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's
But
true. You probably did.
but I at the same time, I started doing nothing, like with
Yeah.
a shovel in my hand, and I worked my way up. And so, but at the same time, anytime like throughout my business, he's been there to kind of help with any questions that I have. He's been
Yeah.
there. So for honestly, for somebody who doesn't read or whatever, find that person that can push you.
Yeah.
I have another buddy named Sam who that's what I've talked about already once. And he's got drive and he's
Yeah.
got push and he's got everything. And like he's like my older brother. And even though I have an older brother, like he's my second older brother. And like he's driven to do more in life. And he always questions some of the things that I say, but it's only to help
Mhm.
me improve. And so like you might have some doubters along the way, but like prove them wrong.
Yeah.
Prove those people why like you can be better. Why you want to strive to do better in life. Like I said, I'm not perfect, but you got to find the ways that work and the ways that don't work.
Yeah, what I love what you said earlier, and you probably didn't even catch it until
Uh,
now, but you were talking about Sam earlier in the podcast, and you said one of my favorite things, you said you respect him. And I think that says so much about him, but also says a lot about you because you respect his time, you respect his outlook, his perception, but then it comes right back at you that typically somebody like that's going to hold you accountable because they know that there's more in you and they can see more in you. So
oh, for sure.
based off of that too, you also mentioned a mentor. I think every single person listening should have a mentor, whether they own a business or not.
Oh,
And
100%.
I would take it a step further to say that it should be a paid mentor. And
Pretty
there's
much.
a yeah, there's a difference because I think you can be mentored, by a lot of people, but the people you truly respect, I would reach out to them and say, "Hey, I love everything you're doing. If like could I pay you to mentor me, to coach me,
For sure.
and then just be willing to listen, just be willing to open that up. For the last 3-4 years, I've had coaches and they have shaped me as a man, as a husband, as a business owner, like you name it. But it's got to be somebody that you respect, not just in business, but outside of that. And so, thinking about somebody, maybe that's a leader in their faith or somebody that's a leader in business, but they have to have those other tendencies that you're looking for as well. So, I just thought that was really cool how you mentioned that you respect him because I think that's probably the biggest piece that you're looking for.
And same with my mentor itself. Like
Mhm.
he, like I said, he started when I started uh working for him when I was a little delinquent, getting in trouble with the law at 15.
Yeah.
I just needed a little bit of influence. I got that influence of working for him for a couple of years, and then I kind of drifted off for a couple of years, and then I ended up buying a house right across the street from his shop. And,
Nice.
and so then we were talking, and I mean, I talked to him almost daily. And like I said, but at the end of the day, like I juggle stuff off him, he juggles stuff off me. We vent to each other. Like that's just part of it,
Yeah.
and like I said, in however many years he's been in business, like I've definitely, he's not, and maybe he did this year, I guess I don't know, but like he goes, I've never had the years that you've had. Like your growth is insane. But I
Hmm.
said, I mean, I hate to say it, but I said I'm driven. I
Yeah.
don't want to lose. Like Links Outdoor like, is there, but I put in everything. I put that 100%, 110% in every day. And if I don't, you know, I could fail. And
Hmm.
yeah, people are like, you're doing so well, you're not gonna fail. And I'm like, the thing is I don't want to fail myself.
Yeah.
Like my business might go on, but I don't want to fail myself. Like I have high standards of myself. And like I said, I've still failed certain things along the way, but like they say in business, the first 5 years are the hardest. And I'm
Hmm.
telling you, when it's the hardest, it is the fucking hardest. I have learned from 1 to 2 to 3, now 4. Now we're going into year 5. And who knows? I might deal with other obstacles coming this year that are even harder yet. And it could happen,
Yeah.
but you gotta, like I said, if you give up now, where are you at in business? Where are you at in life?
Yeah. And I think, even people listening in and maybe they've been in business for 30 years and they might say, wait till year 10 to 15, 10 to year 15. And, so there's
Heard it.
totally different aspects to that. But I think just that next day, just keep going for that next day and keep building this thing, keep building that next year. And it's
Even
this,
even even jobs throughout the year. Like
yeah.
sometimes, I don't tell my guys a lot about the money aspect, only
Hmm.
because there's so many variables about it. Like I said, not that I don't want it to get over their head on it, but I want them to like. Sometimes I feel, man, I'll be like, yeah, I lost money on this job. It is what it is, and I only tell them that because, like, for one, it's on me for not bidding it correctly, but I also want them to know I want them to do still a good job. It is what it
Yeah.
is. I didn't make any money, not life or death. Let's move on. Let's learn from this. So on the next job, hopefully you can improve. Now, even in 30 years of business, and I can guarantee you, anybody will tell you, like they've still lost money on a job. They forget things. They didn't accommodate for certain things. Weather predicted it. An employee quit. An employee
Hmm.
broke something which caused $30,000 in damage, and they had to call their insurance in. All the things. And so, like I said, that's where learning is that's part of growth, and that's what I'm gonna try to continue to be better at every year is learning. And I probably hurt my brain thinking about it all the time because I'm always trying to be better. But if you don't get better at your business, or if you don't learn, like I said, if you don't have the willingness to learn, how do you expect to gain anything? This winter,
Right.
I'm going in like a month and a half. I'm going to Chicago to learn about water features. I don't know that much about it, but I want to do it and sell it as a product, and
Yeah.
so that I can give my clients like that upper hand and have level up in their backyard or have something therapeutic in their backyard. But if I don't know how to properly install it, like yeah, I could go out and try and I don't know, and just try and guess on how I'm going to do it. But that's where the mentor is. That's where the
Right.
coaches that are there, the people that are there to influence you and help you get better. Like that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and speaking of water features, and I talked about him on maybe the last episode, but Nick Decker, he's one of our
Hmm.
clients with Decker's Land Solutions, but his family owns Decker's Pondscapes. And for anyone listening that, listening to you, Lincoln, talk about water features, they have one of the best Instagram pages when it comes to water features. So,
Dude, I
uh,
follow, I was scrolling through their stuff this morning.
yeah, yeah, dude,
It's
it's,
great. And he comments on my stuff, and I've never met him, but
yeah,
like, and he's cheering me on. Like that's the cool thing. Never met a guy cheering me on. Like I love
heck
to see
yeah.
it.
Yeah, so
The
go
family
give
too.
yeah, Decker's Land Services and then Decker's Pondscapes. That's the water features. But
I'm assuming
um,
it's a father son duo then,
yep,
correct?
exactly.
Okay.
Yep. And then So as we kind of wrap up here, Lincoln, I wanted to bring it back to the goals for 2025 because obviously it's January right now. We're looking ahead. I love that you brought up these set goals, but I'd love to hear a couple of those goals from your perspective, and then how are you going to accomplish those goals?
I mean, revenue, I wouldn't necessarily, it's not that it's not a goal. My
Hmm.
biggest thing was to hit 1 million for sure. That was always a
Right.
goal of mine. Now it's just managing it. Like
Yep.
I've done it. I mean, yeah, it's cool, but not that I don't get excited about it, but like once I hit it, I was like, like it felt good, but
Still
like
got to go to work the next day, you know?
exactly. So, a lot of the goals for me is for one to better my mental health. That's
Hmm.
number 1, and I feel like I've done a few things to get me in that right direction.
Good.
Um, obviously there's growth in attachments and things that we buy. Like every time I see something else that CMP puts out, like I want it because it's so helpful.
Hmm.
But I would just say from a business standpoint, more profits. Profits are huge. I did a lot of money in revenue, but I also spent a lot of money.
Right.
My dream shop, I got my small 30 by 30 shop, but the big shop out back is 64 by 96. And we're gonna do all of it. I'm not gonna shortchange it. I'm gonna put the in-floor heat in. We're gonna
Wow.
oh
Let's
yeah,
go.
we're gonna do all of it. We'll see what
When that's done, I'll have to come up and take a look, and we'll
oh
show,
yeah.
we'll kind of link it back to this episode too and
Yeah,
show everyone what it looks like, and even to see the progress of it would be cool. And I'm sure
yeah,
you
and
already have
I've taken some pictures and kind of showed about it a little bit.
good.
That and the pond.
Yeah.
I really that's not that that's number 1 priority, but like you sacrifice everything for your, at least I do. I sacrifice almost everything for my business.
Hmm.
And I'm so in it all the time that, like I said, it goes back to taking care of yourself. And this pond is kind of that thing for me. Not symbolic by any means, but like it's just it's a safe space. And I go back and it's next to my boulder pile, and I'm always back there just admiring it, just because it's just one of those things where it's something, you live down in Arizona, like you go on top of that mountain that you just hiked, it's just something
Hmm.
rewarding you see every day. So kind of like Nick Decker and their ponds and stuff like that, like
Yeah.
the reward because of such of a challenge, like installing a water feature is so challenging. It's probably why a lot of people don't do it, is because they
Hmm.
don't want to face that challenge. And I could be wrong, but looking at it, and if you can master that, or if you can, do all the things, and like I said, I got some pretty cool things in mind for it. But if we can pull it off, it'll be even cooler. So
Yeah, absolutely, dude. No, I'm excited to keep up with, your journey throughout the year. And then I know everyone listening likely will be as well. So, for everyone listening, like I mentioned earlier, Lincoln Ruggeberg at Links Outdoor Services LLC. Shoot him a follow on Instagram, shoot him a message, let him know you listened to the episode. And especially if you listen this far, listen to the end. I know I always appreciate that, you guys listening all the way through. But Lincoln, I can't thank you enough for being on the show, but also like everything else you've done. I mean, we've been connected for a while now, and you're always such a huge support to everything that I'm doing. But thank you for being on the show today, being willing to open up about your mental health, about your business, about your finances, like everything. That is how I've learned what I've learned. And that is how so many people listening have learned what they've learned, is because people like you want to open up and be transparent about that. So thank you for being on. We're excited to see the updates. And then, of course, later in the year, we'd love to have a second episode, bring it back and
yeah,
see kind of where we're at.
yeah. Thanks for having me, and thank you. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. So, thank you guys again for tuning in and listening. This is Lincoln. Go give him a follow. And of course, whatever platform you're listening on, please give us a review. And if you're on YouTube, like, subscribe, and leave a comment on this episode. So, Lincoln, have a great trip to Mexico, and
Yeah,
hopefully we come away with the Vikings win tonight.
let's go. Hell yeah, man.
Skol, baby. All right, man. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good. See ya, man.